Thank you so much for being here. I don't think our next guest needs much of an introduction, but I've been given one. So I'm excited to welcome entrepreneur, co-founder of Cost Plus Drugs, Mark Cuban, to the big interview stage. From selling garbage bags door to door at age 12 to founding a lot of groundbreaking tech companies, Mark has always been ahead of the curve. It's really no surprise that with his latest venture, Cost Plus Drugs, he's also ahead of the curve. He is working to demolish and rebuild the prescription drug industry, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Everyone, please welcome Mark Cuban. Thanks so much for being here. Mark, thank you so much for being here.
I liked how you changed "fuck up" to "demolish." You know?
Oh. It's a family-friendly event.
Oh, then I should leave right now.
This is just like Shark Tank. So I asked a friend here, actually, Sean, earlier today. I said, "What should I kick off Mark Cuban with? What should I say?" And he said, "Why don't you give him a belated congratulations for Klay Thompson?"
Oh, there you go. Clay's killing it. Yeah. We thank everybody here for Klay.
Right. Yeah. You're lucky that you're welcome in the Bay after that one,
Trust
actually.
me. I look over my shoulder.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Cost Plus. When our issue came out, in which you're prominently featured, one thing I heard from people was, I didn't know Mark Cuban was in the pharmaceutical business.
Right.
You've been doing this for a while, though. Why did you get into pharma?
Does anybody here like their healthcare? Does anybody here think the healthcare industry works well? That's why. I mean, I literally got a cold email from a Dr. Alex Oshmayansky who wanted to start up a compounding pharmacy, which actually makes drugs that are on, in this case, on short supply, that are on the shortage list. And I'm like, you're thinking too small. And that was right around the time Martin Shkreli was going to jail. So he was in the news. And I was like, how can this one guy take control of this drug and jack up the price that dramatically? And so I'm like, let me just take a look. And when you look at the pharmaceutical industry, back then it was very obvious that it was opaque. There was no transparency at all. I mean, think about it. If you get a prescription from your doctor, what's the first thing they ask you? Not can you afford it? It's what pharmacy do you use? Right. And that's it. And then you've got to deal with the fear of can you afford it, or what's the impact, what's the copay, what's the deductible, all those things. So we said, okay, let's start a company called costplusdrugs.com and let's make it transparent. And it seems so simple, but the impact has been so dramatic. So if you go to costplusdrugs.com and you put in the name of the medication, and we've grown from 111 to 2,500, and we have more to go, if we carry it, the medication pops up, and you'll see our actual cost. So we'll show you what we pay for it. We mark it up 15%. If you want it delivered, and then there's a $5 pharmacist fee that's included because you have to have a pharmacist review it, and then a $5 to ship it to you. Or you can, now we have an affiliate network where you can pick it up at a local pharmacy. Just by showing our price, our cost, and only marking up 15%, we were able to take down the price of drugs like imatinib, chemotherapy drug, MS drugs, from like $2,000 plus a month to $21 a month, $35 a month. So the impact has been insane.
What are some of the common drugs people might recognize that you're manufacturing and selling? Selling? You
know, imatinib is probably the most dramatic example. I'm not the pharmacist to remember all the funky names, but people with MS, as an example, we're able to take. There's a drug called droxidopa that. I'll give you a scenario. A friend of mine was in this horrific car accident, and he needed to take this drug and lost his insurance. Emailed me and said, okay, they're telling me it's going to be $10,000 every 3 months. I'm like, okay, Landon, I'll check into it. Turns out we carried it, and when we carried it, back then it was $64 a month. From 10,000 to 64 times 3, and now it's in the $20 because as our volumes go up, because we do everything on a straight markup, our costs go down. And literally, we have lowered the price of a medication every single weekday for the past almost 18 months. And so if you think about it, but the most dramatic thing we did was unintentional. We published our entire price list. And so there's places, if you really looked hard, you can go and find a price for a medication that you might need, but there's no place where the company published their entire price list. And we did that for all 2,500 drugs. And what's happened now is that researchers are able to use that price list to compare to what the government is paying for things, to compare to what states are paying. And if you have a company that self-insures, to start the process of allowing you to compare what the company pays for the medications that their employees and the people that they cover, the population they cover, what they pay. And that has just been a game changer. I mean, we've had researchers from Vanderbilt, Harvard, all these different places say, if Medicare bought these 9 drugs from Cost Plus Drugs, just 9 drugs would save $3.6 billion a year. If they bought these 11 drugs, it's $6.3 billion a year. I mean, it's insane. And literally, for so many folks out here in the Valley, probably the easiest way to raise money and put cash in your own pocket is to change your healthcare plan, and in particular, your pharmacy benefit manager. Because the crux of this problem and the opacity of the industry, there are 3 pharmacy benefit managers that control, give or take, 80% of the market.
So these are the middlemen.
The middlemen, yeah.
Yep.
And literally, they don't want you to know what you pay. Mm-hmm. If you work with a self-insured company and they're working with one of the big 3, let's just say the biggest PBMs, you're getting ripped off. Guaranteed. The quickest way to raise money if you have over 100 employees and self-insure is to change your healthcare program and in particular pharmacy benefit manager. That's immediate cash in the bank. And companies don't really realize that. And that's why it's been so successful, because the next question always is, how did this happen? Mm-hmm. And the reality is there's 155 million people covered by self-insured employers. And it's not the core competency of a CEO to understand all their healthcare benefits. Right. You just don't, right? I mean,
you could ask a couple of them here on stage today if you want.
Happy to, yeah.
Brian Chesky, let's talk to him about health plans.
Right? Say,
Jensen Huang, I'm sure he wants to talk about health plans.
Jensen, just say, would you? Yeah. No, seriously, ask them, why are you dealing with one of the big pharmacy benefit managers? And ask them, is that, because here's what's happening that's crazy that they're going to be, here's why they're starting to understand. There's a law called ERISA that requires the employer now to take on the fiduciary responsibility for the cost and care of all the lives they cover as employers. And J&J and Wells Fargo just got sued, and they're going to lose, which effectively means that every single major self-insured employer is going to get sued in a class action suit. And so if any of you fall into that trap, get ready. They're coming. But the bigger point again is, now there's transparency for medications, and you can cut the cost whether you're a little company or a big company. And if you have a high deductible or you're uninsured, always check the pricing, because otherwise you're going to get ripped off.
So you've made it pretty clear you're not doing this for altruistic reasons. You're running a business.
Yeah.
You want this to be a profitable business. Yeah. I think people hear about what you're doing and they think, oh, it's altruistic. Like it's because you're doing something good.
Well, I could make more money.
Right. But what you said in
seriously, but we're a public benefit corporation. But how much fucking money do I need? I'm not trying to land on Mars, it's just. And not to take anything away from him for trying, more power to him. But the reality is, I mean, at this point in my life, it's just like more money. Fuck up the healthcare industry.
That was the word I left out of the intro. You guys.
F-U-C-K, the healthcare industry.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm getting at is how did you decide on that being the industry you wanted to go after?
Because it was so obvious that it would be easy to change. That it was insane. What had happened in the past is I dug in more, and we've been in business now. We started shipping, 2.5 years ago, and now we have millions of people whose lives we've changed. But you start to realize that what the incumbents would do is they'd go in and just buy companies. So anybody that was a threat, they just buy them. And one after another, we'd go into situations where we're talking to employers or whatever, and they're saying, yeah, we were going to do business with this company, and they were trying to cut the cost, but then so-and-so bought them. And like I said, that's just not in the cards for us.
Let's talk about tariffs.
Tariffs?
Tariffs.
Okay.
So President-elect Donald Trump is.
I know who he is, yeah.
You heard of him? Okay. So he said that he's planning to impose tariffs, Canada, Mexico, China, day one. We don't know exactly how that's going to shake out yet, but we do know that this could affect the drug industry. I mean, he's referring often to the illegal drug industry, but also this could affect the pharmaceutical business. How is this potentially going to affect cost plus drugs?
I mean, if it's just China, it won't impact us at all.
Why is that?
Because I checked, we had 16 drugs that we bought that were shipped from China, and we're changing that to a different manufacturer. So the Chinese tariffs won't impact us at all.
Okay.
And now we do get drugs from India, so we'll see what happens there. But if there are tariffs, we only have 15%. And so, we'd have to pass them through.
Pass them through, meaning the cost goes to the consumer.
Right, the cost would go up because our costs would go up.
Okay. Have you talked to Donald Trump about this?
Sure. I was like, yo, what's up, bro?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
You have not. If the conversation were to occur, if you were invited to have, what's your priority? What's the first thing you would say?
I would say, don't fuck it up. It's working, Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no point in trying to guess what he's going to do and speculate because we don't know. I don't think he knows yet. I think he's trying to, he plays it by feel and it'll go where he goes, and we'll react accordingly. But I think, he's obviously very cognizant of PR and the idea that medications from the cheapest provider are going up and it means more people aren't able to afford it. I really don't think he's going in that direction. I really think he'd make an exception. You
were clearly a vocal supporter of Kamala Harris for president. When you look back at...
Yeah, see how good a job I did?
When you look back at this election season, is there anything that you think you would have done differently or taken a different approach in terms of how you were communicating?
Not really. I mean, I'm not the candidate. I did the best I could to try to convey what she was doing for business people, small business, and I think, the message was good, but, they weren't voting or not voting for me.
Yeah. One of the things that we talked about when we did the big interview in the magazine was crypto. Mm-hmm. And, you feel pretty strongly and you're in favor of crypto and you're in favor of it not being villainized. And you felt as though that's what Gary Gensler and the SEC had been doing.
Yeah. And I think it really hurt her.
So you do?
Yeah, I really do.
So what's interesting is because my response to you was, isn't that sort of a fringe issue? And you said, no. But in a
How many people here own crypto?
Close,
yeah. And so when the price when crypto go up, everybody smile, and if you're a young male and you're not part of the traditional banking system, when I was a kid, open up a bank account, open up a savings account. Now download an app, right? Robinhood or Coinbase, buy crypto because your friends are buying crypto. You understand it more. Maybe you buy stocks, but more kids were getting into crypto, and that was their net worth. And when 40%, according to Pew Research, of young men own crypto or have owned crypto, and the guy you're connected to, Gary Gensler, is basically telling you to roll over and let me stick a bike handle in your ass, that just like...
A what?
Yeah. I was going to say worse, but I just couldn't, yeah. That was stupid, sorry. But basically...
Did you say a bike man?
Yeah, forget it. Yeah. I'm sure that's something Elon will tweet about at me. But in any event, but Gary Gensler did not make it good for people who own crypto. And I think that truly hurt Kamala. And I even said it. I said it to her. I said it to her team. I said it publicly that Gary Gensler could lose the election for her. And, when there's 240,000 votes across 7 swing states, and the number of young men who voted against her was much higher than expected, I don't think it's a stretch to connect the two.
What happens to crypto now?
I think, it's, laissez-faire. It's whatever comes. But it was interesting when he talked about putting, if any of the BRICS countries stopped using the dollar as the de facto reserve currency, then he was going to put tariffs on them, which is the antithesis of what people who gave him a lot of money and support Bitcoin think. Mm-hmm. They think a big part of the value of Bitcoin is the fact that fiat currency is weak and the Federal Reserve weakens it, and it doesn't have a great future. So here's Bitcoin to save the day. So it'll be interesting to see if he follows through on that, and what the Bitcoin maxis think about it.
Is this a moment where Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies actually become more legitimate or less under
Well, it's not about legitimacy. It's like gold, right? I mean, it's not based off of supply and demand on jewelry, right? People see it as an option in the event of, the economy going down or something bad happening. But people aren't going to walk around with gold bars. Oh, look, he owns gold. Bam, now I own gold. Bam, right? What are you going to do? Let me slice you off a little piece of gold, but no, people look at it, Fort Knox has got a ton of gold that the United States owns, and it's supposed to be an underlying asset or commodity for the dollar in some respects, right? To buy and sell. And people look at Bitcoin as a better version of gold. And I agree with that. I think it's a great store of value. It's easier to buy and sell. You can fractionalize it. You can buy things. You can transfer it internationally. And so I think it has more value than gold. So I don't think you have to legitimize it. But in terms of the price, I own enough that I really want it to go up. But it's just supply and demand.
How much do you own?
A lot.
Okay. Glad we got that out of the way. We have 10 minutes left, and there's so much I want to ask you about. I feel like we could talk about crypto the whole time. I also wanted to ask you about AI, but I think one thing I'll say about AI, and then we should move on from it into the platforms, is that when we spoke for the big interview, you asked me, what would you trust more in an environment if you weren't able to see? You said, what is it, a self-driving car or a seeing eye dog?
Oh,
and I said a Waymo, and you said, I trust the dog.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, while you're here in San Francisco, you should take a Waymo.
No, I want to actually.
Yeah,
it's
so someone
Waymo
here,
can't be amazing.
if anyone would like to pull up their app and get a Waymo ride from our Cuban,
I can do that. I know how to download the app.
He'll pay for it. Okay.
But the difference is a dog will recognize adversarial situations better than AI can.
Right. When you were talking about training the video and all that, but let's talk about the platforms, because you were a very active Twitterer. Now you're not using it quite as much anymore. You've moved on to Blue Sky. Yeah. How would you describe this moment for, I'm just going to call it Twitter. How would you describe this moment for Twitter?
I think it's an existential moment for Twitter. I really do. I go over to Blue Sky and I can engage like it's, 2015 or 2016, like we did on Twitter. And literally I can talk about the Mavs, and people aren't going to come in and say, fuck the Mavs, you're an asshole. You look like...
you took Klay Thompson.
Yeah, you took Klay Thompson. Yeah. No, I get some of those, but that's okay. Or you look like Rachel Maddow when you wear glasses, just dumb shit.
That's the tame stuff.
No, it's crazy. No, it's crazy. I count. So whenever Elon would talk shit to me, I would just bookmark it on Twitter. And somebody said that he said something, and I would just check and he hadn't. But I just decided to count how many times he has posted about me or replied about me in the last 12 months. More than 40 times. I stopped at 40. And it's just like, what the fuck? I don't mind going back and forth in him, but like we talked before, whoever controls the algorithm controls the platform. And when you have an algorithm that defines what happens on the platform and what you see, you get one type of engagement. When you go to Blue Sky, where you completely control the experience, you get a completely different type of engagement. And so I can talk about cost plus drugs and really engage. I can talk about, I can see other discussions and jump in and ask questions. And it's been great. I mean, literally. And when some idiot comes along, like somebody who comes over from Twitter, who likes to give me shit there, comes on, not only can you block them, and it's a real block, but you can do this thing if you started the thread where you can say, hide reply for everyone. That's like the best thing in the world ever, because, I want to talk about the Mavs or Cost Plus or whatever, and troll comes in, troll gone. And the one thing about a troll is a troll wants to be seen, right? Mm-hmm. If within 15 minutes you're gone and nobody's going to see what you posted, there's no point in continuing to fight it, particularly since you truly can't see my post. And even if they, create burner accounts or whatever to try to get in, it just takes 2 seconds to do it. And so as a result, I forget the topic I was talking about, but I literally counted that there was over 5. And if you go to Blue Sky, I'm M Cuban, and you'll see my reference to this, that there were 526 responses to something and only 5 trolls posted. And that took me just a minute to clean them out. And it was a great conversation. I mean,
do you feel like that Blue Sky is in any way just becoming an echo chamber of the people who decided that Twitter was too toxic or too right-leaning for them, and now they've just moved over to Blue Sky?
To a certain extent, yes.
In a sense, how does that fix anything?
But it doesn't matter, right? Because, if I want to talk like the Mavs, right? So I went to a bunch of sports writers, and there's these things called starter packs on Blue Sky, and they were all in there. And we
have a Wired one. Follow it. Thank you.
Yeah, the Wired starter pack. And you see what happens. I can engage with them and talk Mavs and see where it goes. And, like Ben Shapiro, he has an account there, and I can engage with him. I may agree or disagree, but if I start the thread, I have control of it. And if it turns out to be a legitimate argument or discussion, that's great. And, the point being that whoever controls the thread controls the conversation and can open it up to anybody they want. And there's no For You page. So it's not like it's dominated by everything that Elon says. It's dominated, it's dominated by the people you follow or the list that you create or the feeds that you follow. And so you get to really engage. And it's cool. I mean, it's just like all that intellectual engagement that we kind of miss from Twitter, where it was like, oh, this is a great topic. I want to learn more. Or I'm just, watching these people have this conversation. It's amazing. And there's, there's 1 or 2 idiots in there. I'm not even talking about people I disagree with, but people who just say stupid stuff, right? Hateful stuff. It's so de minimis that the engagement is amazing. And I think that's why it's growing. And you even saw the New York Times come on there, and someone told me they referenced one of their posts on Blue Sky, and whereas in the past they would do that on Twitter, and to see them move over to escape what's going on over there is great. And here they are. I don't know their latest numbers, but they have more than 22 million users. And I think
we're going to get an update on those numbers shortly, actually.
Yeah. So,
Jay Graber coming on stage.
Jay comes on. But you got to try it. And like I said, I'm M Cuban. Try it. I mean, bring your friends on there. It is truly a social network. Hey, was at the Mavs game, da-da-da. I was there too. I mean, that's insane to be able to have that conversation on a social network.
I think that there's been this idea for a long time. And certainly, I think probably when you were starting out as an internet entrepreneur, that the internet was a little bit downstream from culture. And now we've come around to this idea that the internet is culture. And we certainly saw that play out a lot in this election too. And there were some responses to the outcome of this election is saying that, well, on the left, people don't have the same kind of audience that people are gaining on the right. Right? Like there's no podcast for the left. That was something that
I don't agree with that at all.
So talk about this, because if everyone who just doesn't like Twitter anymore moves to Blue Sky or moves to Threads or moves to something like it, but Twitter remains, while small relatively in numbers to some social networks, but sort of outsized influence
I don't think Twitter, if you want to know what Elon thinks, Twitter's amazing. And that's great, right? That's his platform.
Do we distinguish reality?
I'm sorry?
How do we distinguish reality then on social media? What's really happening?
I've been on Theo Vaughn. I've been on the Nelk Boys. I've been on all those podcasts and everything but Joe Rogan. He won't have me on for whatever reason. And so when you go on there, they just want to have a conversation. And from that conversation, there's a ton of clips. Like Andrew Schultz, I had a great conversation with him. They're still posting clips, right? And so when you go on those, it's not that they're right or left. It's that they create clips that feed the algorithm on Twitter. And so if you happen to, be a fan of theirs and comparable things, the algorithm's going to find you. The algorithm always finds you with things that you've shown interest in. And so that's great, but the way to deal with that isn't trying to get more Andrew Schultz's, to counter that. The way to deal with that is to flood the zone. So
what does that mean? What does that look like?
What that means is either making the rounds and, creating things that are worth talking about or worth showing, or just create memes left and right, so that it just dominates the algorithms. So like I told the Harris campaign, and they really didn't pursue it, you have to I had a conversation with Mr. Beast that was illuminating to no end. And he basically said, spends millions of dollars reverse engineering the algorithms on each platform. And that's where he comes up with the ideas on what to do next. And that's exactly what the next political campaign has got to do. You've got to figure out what, for each type of individual that you want to get to vote for you, that you want to engage, you have to figure out their algorithm, because each one of us in this room has our own algorithm on Twitter. It's effectively customized for us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. And so you have to flood the zone with as many different memes, clips, everything that you can do, so there's something for everybody. And there's so much volume, you can't miss it. And it has nothing to do with right or left. I mean, like I told him, it's not like it was facts that made the difference in this election, right? They're eating cats and dogs, he's fucking a couch, That's what they needed more of, more couch fucking stuff. For real, right? Because if there would have been 600 million couch fucking extensions, everybody would have seen it continuously, because the memes don't filter out, right? The algorithms don't filter out, right? They filter forward. And that's politics going forward.
And you really do think that would have altered the outcome of the election?
I think it would have made all the difference in the world. But because when Donald Trump would talk about they're eating cats and dogs, everybody had to cover it. And it turned into a meme, even though it started as one person posting one thing on Facebook. When they started talking about weird at the beginning, when they talk about brat, when they talk about fucking the couch, it was everywhere and everybody had to respond to it. You have to flood the zone. Kama's campaign started off flooding the zone with stuff and then dropped it and tried to use accuracy as a differentiator. Whereas, Donald Trump's, he floods the zone continuously. That's what he does. That's who he is as a campaigner. He's a great salesperson. He's willing to put himself in just all kinds of crazy situations and flood the zone with information. And it got to the point, in my mind, at the end of the day, it was, who do you trust more for the things that you were scared most about? Were you scared most about tariffs? Were you scared most about people eating cats and dogs? Were you scared most about taxes? Were you scared most about immigration and the border? And they scared you, and then they flooded the zone with memes. And that's, to me, and partially crypto.
We're out of time, but I do have to ask you one more question. I want to leave the audience with a note of hope, optimism. In somewhat politically volatile, unstable times, I hate saying it, in these times, in this moment, what would you say to people? What's a piece of advice you have to give to people for navigating that, for living their lives?
Look, you guys are here for a reason. You're here because you believe in something better. You believe in something bigger. In this country, we are the one country in the world where when you have an idea and you get that feeling in your stomach, you guys know what I'm talking about? And then you say to a friend, oh, I got this idea. What do you think, Lauren? And Lauren goes, oh, that's really cool. And then you go and Google it, or now you put it into ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and it gives you a business plan. You go, oh my God, I can do this. What makes us different is we go out there and do it. That's who we are as a country. We may be in weird times right now politically, but that doesn't change who we are as Americans. The president, we can be afraid and we can be aware and we can be concerned, but what you do and who you are, that's what makes us different. And so I am bullish on the United States of America. No doubt about it, because that's why people are here. It's not like people aren't showing up. It's not like people aren't coming to this Wired conference. It's not like, there aren't great interviews up here. It's not like people say, oh, we're fucked, let's just go sleep, right? No, people are doing what we do, and that's what makes us unique. If you look at every single new technology over the last 30 years, 95% of them have come here. Maybe they were born somewhere else, but they're here, and the companies were born here or grown here, because that's what we do. Who the fuck else does that? We do as Americans, and that's not going to change no matter who the president is.
Sounds like a stump speech. Mark, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I'd love to keep talking. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
It's really great. It's really great hearing from you.